Happy Holy Week, everybody. I wanted to hop back on and continue the discussion, so let's do it. Get my lovely microphones together. Testing. 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 Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, guys. We're going to be talking about Holy Week because it's Holy Week. Give me a second to put these pieces of equipment together. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and like this stream. Go ahead and subscribe really quick, and then we'll get started. Welcome, everybody. Okay, here we go. Getting myself cozy here. Go ahead and pop your comments in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. We're gonna be talking about Holy Week today. So today technically is Good Friday. Some of you guys may have the day off, others may not. Honestly, interestingly enough, I don't remember ever having Good Friday off. This is the first time I've had Good Friday off, so that's interesting. I think I would just go ahead and honor my Lord and Savior today. Since I got the day off, let me go ahead and go live and talk about the Holy Week. Let's see here. Get my Bible, my good old Bible. Matthew covers a lot of Holy Week, so that's a useful place to start. So for Holy Week is all about the week leading up to the very last days of Jesus Christ on earth. So it's a really special time. It's a time that we acknowledge what Jesus did, what he did in terms of like sacrificing for us, so that we could have everlasting life. And what he took on Holy Week is something the average human being would not be able to take on. So we're seeing in this that God loved us before we were even born, before we even came to this earth. God loved us. So you guys, really quick, subscribe and really quick like the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Today we're talking about Holy Week. So Holy Week, I think, we kind of gloss over Holy Week and we go straight to Easter Sunday, right? So a lot of us have a focus on Easter Sunday, which is the pinnacle moment of the whole week. But a lot of times we don't really get to hear about what was a person's last week like alive. And so I think if this were you or I, we would want to hear a lot about the entire week, not just about the last very moments. The other thing I want to talk a little bit about is the fact that today is Good Friday, and today is a day that Jesus died. And when I think about that, hey, everybody, welcome, welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe really quick and share the stream so that it gets out to more people, so that more people can know about Holy Week. There tends to be this big focus on Jesus's death and the crucifixion and the horror of it, and that is a huge piece of the picture. But I wanted to make sure we tidied up that Jesus sacrificed his life for us so that we would have everlasting life. He was the perfect sacrifice. But thank goodness it did not end with just what happened on that cross. Thank goodness it did not end with his death. Does that make sense? So that's where we want to make sure when we talk about Holy Week, we're really talking about the last week of Jesus on earth, how difficult that time would have been. But we're also talking about the day that he went through the crucifixion. And then we're also talking about, his resurrection. So Holy Week is all the things leading up to it. Those difficult moments, those conversations at the Last Supper. It's letting people know that, like, hey, I'm not going to be here for a long time. I'm going to return though. It's the difficulties of all of that. And then it's the beauty of the tomb being empty and him, being resurrected. And so, I think some of it gets lost with Easter bunnies and things like that. It gets lost. But guys, we would have nothing. We would all be on our own personal path to hell without Jesus. We would still be separated from, from the Father above without Jesus. So we have to really, really talk about the importance of the entire week and really honor the weight that Jesus took on living inside of a human body, the weight that he took on in sacrificing himself for us. Hey everybody, where are you guys watching from? I see India in the house. Welcome, welcome. I'm in Atlanta. We're talking about Holy Week Part 2. Tomato Gang, I love your name. I love tomatoes too. Actually, I just was cleaning out the tomatoes in my fridge before we started, which is oddly enough. Hi, Jose. Welcome, welcome. Hey, guys, go ahead and be sure to let me know where you're watching from. Also, subscribe really quick. Today, we're talking about Holy Week. There's it's hard to put it all in one day. We talked about a little bit of Holy Week a day or two ago, but it's a heavy week, right? To try to capture all of what happened in a week in one square day is not really practical. So we'll talk about Holy Week. All Holy Week, we'll talk about it. Welcome, guys. I'm in Atlanta. I see you guys calling in from all across the world. So welcome, welcome, everybody. So Matthew is a good place to start when we're talking about Holy Week. It's a really good place to start. When we talk about Holy Week, I want you to keep in mind how a lot of it started. It started with prophecy being fulfilled by Jesus hopping on a donkey and then riding into Jerusalem. And as he rode in, it talks about that during Palm Sunday, where people are shouting and cheering, and they're throwing the leaves of the palm tree onto the ground, and King Jesus is showing up and walking in, and just the beauty of the King of Kings coming in as a humble servant, ready to take on the world for his people, but not doing it in a way that's kingly. He did it in a way that was so servant-like and humble. And I feel like we all can learn a lot about Jesus from that. And so when we start off with Palm Sunday, and it's Matthew 21, 6 through 9. I'll just read the entire section, starting with Matthew 21. Now, when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage, to the Mount of Olives, then Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied, and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." This took place to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, saying, "Say to the daughter of Zion, behold, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a beast of burden." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the road, and others cut branches from the tree and spread them on the ground. And the crowds went before him and that followed him and were shouting, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." And when he entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred up, saying, "Who is this?" And the crowd said, "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee." So this is Jesus's grand entrance on the donkey, fulfilling prophecy and beginning this stir within the city where some people were like, "Who is this?" Because they knew it was something special, even though he wasn't showing up with huge a major festival. It was who is this person who's showing up and everyone's throwing things into the ground? It's because he had already started to become really recognized for his healing, for his deliverance, etc. So that was that starts off what we call Palm Sunday. If you guys haven't thought much about Palm Sunday, some of the events of Palm Sunday are Jesus and his disciples traveled to Jerusalem for Passover week. He sent John and Peter ahead of him with instructions to find a certain man who had a donkey and its colt. Jesus rode the donkey into Jerusalem, and crowds along the road showed him praise by waving palm branches and cheering. Some spread their cloaks on the road before him. So there was beginning to be this acknowledgement that Jesus was Lord. Certainly, when we think about like comparing that moment to like when we go to our average concert and we're shouting and we're cheering, or we go to like a regular ball game, or it's the NFL, the playoffs or the Final Four for NBA, people are going crazy. They're out in the crowd, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're throwing things, and they're shouting. And like when they get to church, you often notice people like suddenly get uncomfortable shouting and they're suddenly quiet. But there were people that were in the street who understood the significance of who Jesus was at this point. There were some people who knew it, and that's why you're getting some of this shouting and throwing things into the street and throwing their, just throwing things into the street because they're honoring him. And then there's other people that are seeing the reaction of some people to Jesus, and maybe they don't even know Jesus yet. Maybe they haven't received the gospel yet. But some people are like, who is this? Who is this Jesus person everyone's going crazy over? But that's part of the interest here. Some people knew him, and some people were knowing him through like others, the way they were reacting to Jesus. And so it's such an important piece for us to know is like how important it is for us to praise the name Jesus, talk about Jesus wherever we go, make sure people know the gospel. This is because, everything is for naught. If Jesus already died for us, but we have people who are not receiving this gospel, then, at the end of the day, we have to fulfill all that needed to be done. Jesus already made the perfect sacrifice. And then our job, God has commanded us to share this gospel. So Palm Sunday was the beginning of Holy Week. It was Jesus entering into Jerusalem. Of course, Jesus knowing he is entering his final days. But the people, there's a variety of reactions out of the people and the crowds. Some people who just absolutely knew him already heard about his miracles. Some people just knew of this man who was doing miracles. And other people are like, I don't know him. I don't know much, but I see like my uncle, Joe over there, and he's going crazy for Jesus, and he doesn't go crazy over anything. What is this? So this is creating an additional interest in like who Jesus is and what he's all about. And we think about how the gospel spread all over the world. It really, really began spreading after Jesus's death, when people were like, they saw him risen and they were going mad and nuts. Oh my gosh, he's risen, he really is God. And they began to speak about this. And as Christians began to get persecuted where they were at in their hometowns, they began to run and spread out. And as they spread out, they continue to talk about and elevate the name Jesus. So that's a little bit about how the gospel spread, but it all began with Palm Sunday, which was Sunday before today. It's always like the week before Resurrection Sunday, or the week before what people call Easter. But Palm Sunday begins that piece. And you can find that in Matthew 21, 6-9. The second day that we see here is, we can see that being referred to in Matthew 21, 12-13. This is the part where Jesus enters the temple, and he drove out all who sold and bought in the temple, and he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold pigeons. He said to them, "It is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer. You make it a den of robbers." And the blind and the lame came to him in the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the scribes saw the wonderful things that he did, and the children crying out in the temple, Hosanna to the Son of David, they were indignant. And they said to him, do you hear what these are saying? And Jesus said to them, yes. Have you never read? Out of the mouth of infants and nursing babies, you have prepared praise. And leaving them, he went out to the city, to Bethany, and lodged there. So that covers a little bit of his Monday. This is when Jesus is heading back to into Jerusalem. On the way, he sees. Oh, we're not going to get there just yet. Before we get into that, everybody, oh, hi from Tokyo. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about Holy Week. A lot of people know about what we call Easter Sunday, which I call Resurrection Sunday. A lot of people know about Easter, but they don't know about the days leading up to Easter. So I wanted to talk about what we call Holy Week, which is the last week of Jesus's earthly life and all of the events that he went through. Go ahead, share the stream. Also, be sure to subscribe. Be sure you're subscribing so that you can get the rest of Holy Week. And just like that, my cell phone went down for a second. My other phone. Give me 1 second. Because I haven't charged my phones. I just hopped on. Thank goodness I have more than one. Let's see. 1 second here. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to hop off and hop right back on. It'll make it easier. Be right back.